Welcome to my Accent is No Accident podcast. I am your host, Maritza Perez, and we are here today with an amazing entrepreneur who stands for generosity, faith, and service. His name, Rodney Eric López. Rodney, I'm going to go ahead and read the bio to the audience so they get to know you. Rodney Eric López is an accomplished educator, artist, and nonprofit leader. His diverse professional background includes successful tenure teaching artistry, training coaching and facilitation, corporate communications and public relations, and nonprofit leadership. Featured in the hit documentary Mad Hot Ballroom, Rodney fosters teamwork and collaboration with high energy and easy to follow social dance classes. Facilitates through provoking workshops on giving and fundraising. He provides coaching and consultation on mental fitness, and he provides coaching and consultation based in values that are based in leadership. He is a board member of New Urban Arts and the Providence Public Library, and is a proud member of the Rhode Island Foundation's Equity Leadership Initiative. Rodney holds a Bachelor's of Science in Communications Studies from the New York University, where he was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholar. He holds a certificate in Spiritual Entrepreneurship from the Glean Network and Venture for All program at Columbia Business School. He lives in Providence, Rhode Island, with his wife, Noni Thomas López, and his two beautiful sons, Rodney Jr. and Roman. Welcome, Rodney. It is a pleasure and honor to have you today with us. And the very first question that I want to ask you is, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
Maritza, the pleasure and the honor is mine to be here with you, and I'm deeply grateful for the invitation. When you ask about accent, I love the multifaceted way in which you think about an accent, because an accent has different meanings, different layers of meaning. At the level of language, I've actually thought a lot about accent because, and I'm sure we'll get in conversation, but I am a Nuyorican, a Bronx born and raised Puerto Rican who grew up in a family where English was my first language, but Spanish was my parents' first language from Puerto Rico. And they made a conscious decision to make English my first language for reasons that many in the Latino community understand, right? Around assimilation and wanting their children to be fluent in the dominant language. And so, as someone who had to learn Spanish, as someone who grew up in a household where Spanish background, but I wasn't participating in speaking Spanish, I thought a lot about accent. Because when I eventually started speaking Spanish, learning it as an adolescent, I was hyper aware of the fact that my accent was different. I was hyper aware that my accent was not it didn't have the sort of same kind of Boricua Puerto Rican sort of flavor that the rest of my family had. It had a different kind of um, book kind of accent on it, and I was hyper aware of it, and I was hyper conscious of it. and actually self-conscious of it. And even today, still am, even though I've let go of some of that. But I still wrestle with that. I still wrestle with my relationship to Spanish and how I speak it and understand it. That's just at the level of language. My accent, in terms of the power, right? Like the accent over the letter O in my last name, right? Where is the stress in my life? Um, where is the power in my life? Where's the emphasis in my life? This family, I'm happy to say, is a family that is a service-based family. My parents, my siblings, my extended family, we've all chosen paths in our lives around service. We've all chosen lives and careers that have been focused on community, giving back, being proud of who we are, but also wanting to make sure that we're there for the people around us. And so I'm happy to say that I think my accent is an accent around a life of service, um, a life of giving, a life of generosity, uh, and one where we just want to leave our community and our society found it. I think that's what's at the core of who I am and who I try to be anyway. I don't always make it. There are days when I fall far short of that, but I think as a guiding value, service, faith, generosity, these are things that I try to emphasize and live by on a daily basis. So I think that's my accent, and I think that it's no accident that I'm here because I was blessed to be raised in an environment where these things were valued and practiced, and so it's no accident that I've had the weird non-linear career that I've had.
And that is amazing. And you are so true about the accent being reversed when you are the first generation, um, in either country here or in another country, the first generation from immigrants. My daughter has the same thing. She tells me, my friends tell me I don't sound Colombian.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And some other people tell her that she sounds Colombian. So she probably has slangs and words that we have introduced to her, um, that are very Colombian. But like suacate, we say suacate a lot.
And what does swakate mean in your home?
It's like suacate means like something that happened like that, swaz, or like if you fall down, you suacate, you hit the
Okay.
floor.
In my house, in my home, that was flakete, right? It was with an F. So you see, we're very related.
Yeah. So she tells me the same story. And then, but going back to you, I love one thing and keep to talk about. Many people know it, but many people don't because I had to like know, I knew what it meant being a scholar from Dr. Martin Luther King. But many people probably don't know it. And we were just talking about that. It should be taught in every school. Can you introduce us at what it is? What does it mean?
To be a Martin Luther King scholar, I did my undergraduate study at New York University, NYU, obviously in New York, and I was really blessed and privileged to be selected to be a Martin Luther King scholar at NYU when I was doing my studies there. And essentially, those of us who were Martin Luther King scholars were just invited to really, there was a couple of aspects to this program. Number one is it was primarily for students of color, for Black and Brown students to find community, to find affinity, to find relationship with each other in a predominantly white institution. And so that was sort of at one level what was happening in this in this group. But more importantly, we were asked to reflect on the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King by studying his life and studying the impact that he had on the community around him, and ultimately his legacy in the United States and in the world. And so what this means to me, Maritza, is for me, and other people have said this, right, is that Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was probably one of the most, if not the most significant American. Why? Because he not only lived his ideals, he not only inspired people to a greater vision of what the United States of America could be, he lost his life in service of that, and actually put himself in a position where he was in greater mortal danger when he didn't have to, and gave up a life of convenience to do that. And I think when we're all faced with challenges in our lives, the question is what? Now, I'm not saying everybody has to live a Dr. King lifestyle. What I am saying is that when we get to choose between comfort and service, when we get to choose between standing on the sidelines and agitating for change, what choice do we make? And I fall short of that choice many times in my life, but I am grateful to have had some dedicated time to learn about a man whose legacy is still being felt today.
Which actually this falls into the one of the things that you do the most, which is service. You are also coaching on the power of giving and generosity.
Yeah.
And I love this part because I did listen to the beginning of one of your talks, and I was very inspired right there and then how generosity and giving actually helps you grow as an entrepreneur, as a leader. Talk to us more about this.
My walk with generosity, I wish I could sit here and say that, I was born with this insight and that I've lived it my entire life, and that's a fallacy. And us are not like that. We have to go through some things. And my walk with generosity and my interest in the idea of the power of a giving practice came from a period of my life where I was actually in some of the biggest emotional and financial pain that I ever was. I had switched careers from a career in corporate communications and public relations to becoming an artist, to becoming a dancer, a salsa dancer in particular. And what I say about that is not something I recommend anybody do. I don't recommend that people leave their cushy corporate jobs and become a dancer. However, that was the choice that I made for a lot of reasons, which we can get into later if you want. But between that, starting a family, which I didn't really know I was going to be doing that at that time of my life, and really mismanaging my finances. I just wasn't good at it. Number one, because I just didn't know, and number two, I just made poor choices. I made poor choices around my debt. I made poor choices around my taxes. I made poor choices around saving and investing. I did none of those things, and I found myself in a dark place, which is a dark place of embarrassment, a dark place of shame, because I thought I was a smart guy and I should know better. I felt like a failure because now I've got these young children and I need to feed them, and my bank accounts are being seized and my wages are being garnished, and it's just, on the outside I had this like joyful facade because of the work I was involved in, teaching dance to children and to adults. But on the inside, I was feeling embarrassed, ashamed, upset, and so after years of not going to church, because I had just had a really horrible experience with the church of my youth, I started going to church again, and one of the first sermons I hear is that you achieve financial peace by giving. That's where it starts. And my cynical voice came out, and I just looked at the pastor, and in my mind I said, what you're trying to do is get me to put money in the plate, right? Like when the plate comes around, you just want me to put money in it. And I thought that he was trying to get over on me. And the pastor issued a challenge where he said, if you start a giving practice, in 6 months, your life will change. And so, almost in an effort to prove him wrong, I started giving. And I started giving with money that I didn't have. I had no business giving. And I started a disciplined giving practice. And I have to say, he was right. In 6 months, my life was changed. I saw how God and the universe showed up for me in ways that I couldn't have predicted. And it wasn't that, and I want to be very clear with people, this is not about getting rich. It's not like money fell from the sky. It's not like I hit the lotto. It's nothing like that. It's more like the resources I needed showed up when I needed them, and they showed up in abundance. And through that insight that I got, oh, wait a minute, maybe the wisdom tradition is right. Maybe the scripture is right. Maybe the things that these folks have been telling us all these centuries, there's something to it. And so it began a decade-long process of me kind of delving into that, learning more about it. And then, I'm an educator. So if I learn something, I can't keep it inside. I got to teach it. And so I just started, as it came in, give it out. As it came in, give it out. And so it became sort of this 10 plus year journey of, how can I help people? How can I coach people? It started in my church, and then in my community, and now I'm finding new ways to sort of just spread the word that a giving practice, when done with intention and when done with discipline, signals to the universe that you're more focused on what you have and what you don't. And
I love it.
Right. And if that's where the magic is, or the spirit is when you're focused more on what you have and not on what you lack, what you have grows. And
putting it down, just like you heard, just like you said it, I just wrote it down.
oh, good. Well, good.
That's
That's
beautiful.
it. That's what it is. That's it. That's the parable of the sower, like whatever you want to call it, right? There are natural laws, right? That don't, and for anybody who's hearing this with like a religious thing, like, forget the religion. This isn't a religious message. This is a natural law, right? Like when you plant a seed in the soil, it doesn't care what religion you are, right? All it needs is the right environment. And if you give it the right environment, it will sprout. And that's just it. It's agnostic. So I feel like that's what a giving practice is, right? A giving practice is a natural law that when you are intentional about it, it can't help but produce results that are powerful in your life.
And that is so true in any religion, in any culture. And if we go back to our ancestors, the
Right.
tribes, the very first thing they do is build a community and help each other. That's the very first thing every single human did was build a community and help each other and stay together. So giving is not, what you're saying is so beautiful, because it's not about religion. It's not about put money on the plate. It's about you giving to others to open up a universe of opportunities. And I love this. You have to put a giving practice. Love it.
Yes.
Love it.
And a giving practice looks like a lot of different things. I believe that, as the old the old paradigm says time, talent, and treasure, right? So give of your time, give of your talent, give of your treasure. There's a group that's adding two more T's to that: give of your tips and give of your testimony, right? So there's lots of ways to give. There are lots of ways to be generous. And they're all valid and they're all needed. I think giving of your treasure is a unique place to practice, though, because I believe, there's an old saying that says, if you want to see what somebody really values, look at their calendar and look at their checkbook, right? Look at their bank account and look at their calendar. And I think that where you put your time and where you put your money really is really reveals your values. And so I think there's a particular power in a financial giving practice, although giving of any aspect of yourself is really going to really just going to be a beautiful practice for you. And so I highly recommend it.
So the second thing that I'm getting from here is pay attention where you're putting your time and money. And that will let you to know how much of the giving you're doing.
Those are just for me two important benchmarks, right? And I'm gonna give you an example from my life, right? Like the world is hyper concerned, as they should be, with the amount of time we're spending on screens, right? Phones, tablets, TVs, laptops, whatever, right? It seems like an increasing number of our hours are spent on screens. And that's true. And I think some of it is for appropriate use. We're working remotely now, we're doing hybrid office, we're doing all of these things. And so that's a good thing. I think that's a plus. And there are lots of wonderful apps and lots of wonderful technology that allows us to do things like exercise better, eat better, meditate more. Like lots of good things come from that. But then a lot of doom scrolling as well. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say I spend way more time on social media than I should. And what I love about technology is now the technology can spit this data back to you and tell you, you've spent this many hours. And now I've got to look at that and I've got a very serious decision to make. And I have to say, okay, if I'm being honest with myself, I really can't say that I don't have time to invest in my business or my family or my church or whatever, or my friendships. The time is there. The question is how am I using that time? And that's just one example of many. But I think that where you put your time and where you put your treasure reveals a lot about you and just allows you to put a mirror up to yourself and your character and say, what am I really about right now? And what am I about in this season of my life?
I absolutely enjoy this conversation with the full heart and soul. And one of the things that I remember that was in that presentation that I saw was it's a story about the Emperor Moth.
Yes. Yes.
I will love for you to share with us this because it is an amazing metaphor.
So here's the thing about a moth, a butterfly, right? We all know that caterpillars turn into butterflies, and we're fascinated with the transformation, right? Like here's this little slug that's crawling on a branch, and we know that it cocoons and then it eventually becomes a butterfly, this beautiful thing that we love, right? We learned that when we were kids in kindergarten. But there's something about the chrysalis moment, right? When it's in the cocoon. When it's in the cocoon, it actually, in order to leave it, it's a painful process, at least as far as we can tell that butterflies experience pain, right? Like it's actually a painful process. It's not an easy process to, within that chrysalis, essentially the juices and the acids and the thing essentially break this caterpillar down, and it transforms and it morphs right? Like into a completely different thing structurally. Like
Mm.
it doesn't look like the caterpillar anymore. But in that of breaking out of the cocoon, it actually goes through some real growing pains to actually get out of it. And there's a story where there's an old story that says someone tried to help it come out. Like they saw the struggle and they thought, well, why don't I help this thing? Why
Yeah.
don't I break the thing apart so it can fly? But actually it dies when you do that
Oh.
because it needs to go through that struggle because it's in that struggle that the wings and the little body parts inside it actually gets the strength to fly
Mm.
through that exercise of breaking out of the cocoon. And if we interrupt that process, if we actually thinking that we're because the intention might be, oh, I want to help that little butterfly get out. But actually, if we rush that process, if we try to bypass that process, actually we're doing the moth or the we're doing it more harm than good. We need
Yeah.
to let it go through that struggle. And I think that that's us as well. Nobody likes to go through pain, likes to go through struggle. And I think that there are certain struggles that are worse than others. I think struggle that's man-made struggle, that's government-imposed struggle, or things like that. I think those are issues of equity and injustice, and those have to be addressed. But I do think that we all go through our own chrysalis moments, multiple chrysalis moments in our lives, and for me, one of those chrysalis moments was that time when I was feeling really dejected because of the choices I had made and the real scarcity and lack that I was experiencing. And can I just hit the lotto? Even though I don't really play lottery, but I was hoping that $1 million would fall from the sky. But actually, what that chrysalis moment was for me was to learn, no, no, no. There's some lessons for you to learn here. Yes, I see you. You're going through some pain. You're going through some crappy stuff. Um, but there are some real important lessons for you to learn here. And your wings are going to grow eventually. Just stay the course. And so that's really that Emperor Moth story. I think it's a beautiful metaphor for life.
I love this story because we all go through struggles and we sometimes want to get out of them the easy way or try to get out of them faster than we have to. Um, Many times people either help us and then we at the end we didn't learn the lesson. If we go through it again, we're not going to know how to get out of it ourselves.
That's
So
right.
that is beautiful, and I love that because it teaches our youth a lot of, yes, these are going to be hard times, but you're going to come out a butterfly at the end, and you're going to fly and be beautiful, and everything is going to be okay. Why am I bringing this to this conversation? Because I think that it also has a lot to do with the beginning of a conversation. When you go to another country and bring your family or start a family, or you start a new career, you go through struggles because you're learning something totally new, but you have the skills, but you try to find them somewhere. And that's one of the areas that you're really good at because you went through yourself the changing of the career. And that, I think, that is a really good message for our entrepreneurs, that I came from corporate and I was in construction before, and I'm doing something totally different today, in PR and um, marketing. So totally different. but then this I wouldn't say is real.
Hi, I'm very happy to know you are here watching our podcast today. It is an honor to be featuring so many entrepreneurs on the journeys of their inside voice, their accent that is not an accident. And we want to reach out more people like you who are creating a better world of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging. So please take a moment to hit the subscribe button below, like, and share to others. And even if you want to leave a comment, that'll be nice. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode.
Say is real. Walk us through your struggles and how would you help others walk through them?
It's a big question, and a very long set of stories attached to it. I'll try to be efficient because I know we don't have forever here. Um, so a couple of things, just to go back to that Emperor Moth story, right? I don't know, but at least I'd like to imagine. I don't know if science can answer this question, but I'm gonna give it my own answer. I'm gonna say that I believe that the Emperor Moth remembers its days as a caterpillar, right? Like, let's just say that it does. I don't know that it does, but let's just say that it does. And let's just say that it remembers its time in the cocoon and all of like the crap it had to go to get out, right? So the moth is now a butterfly. Like before, the caterpillar couldn't fly. All the caterpillar could do is crawl. Now this thing is flying. Now it can see things it could never see before. Now it sees it at a higher level. Now the moth has a perspective of the world that it could never have as a caterpillar, right?
Yes.
But I have to believe that the moth has some gratitude for its days as a caterpillar, right? When it was just on the ground trying to crawl around. And for its days in the cocoon, I'm glad that's over. And now I've got some experiences that I can take with me on flight. So when you're going through it, you think it's awful. So when I left, like my last days in corporate public relations were awful. Like they just the work was intellectually stimulating, but like I wasn't into my clients. I wasn't to the office politics. I wasn't into like the being of that person. And what sucked about it was that it was the thing I thought I was working for. It was the thing that I thought I was prepared. I thought it was the actualization of my parents' dreams for me.
Yes.
He went to college, he graduated, he got a good job, he's going up the ladder, he's going to be a success. And then leaving that for at the time what I thought was just going to be temporary, but leaving that to go into the arts and to go into dance and to go into this was like such a let for my family. It was a letdown for me in a sense because I made far less money, and it was variable income. It was not something. There was not the same amount in my banking account, right?
Mhm.
Every 2 weeks, lost the benefits, and so while there was an excitement about that switch because I was loving the work, there was also a lot of practical things that just were not good,
Yes.
the emotional things that were not good. And when you're in it, you don't realize it, right? And then you realize you get to the limit of that new thing, then that shiny object starts to lose its luster. And then you realize, oh, I'm just tired all the time. Like, why am I every day? This is exhausting, right? And then you realize somebody else is looking at you and say, oh, I wish I had your life. I'm like, no, you don't. This is not all it's cracked up to be. And then I moved into nonprofit leadership, and what I realized, Maritza, is that like my life I'm in this chapter, but my goodness, I can look at the last several chapters of my life and say, I didn't lose anything. All I was doing was adding a new experience, adding a new experience, adding a new experience. And now I've got this beautiful menu of experiences that now I take with me everywhere I go. Now, somebody's listening to this and saying, yeah, how do I monetize? Okay. And Yeah, that's great, right? Yeah, I'm glad you're self-actualized, but I have bills to pay, or I have, right, and I get that, and I think that yes, there's all. I'm not the career counseling expert, but what I can say is if you follow the passion, and along the way, when you learn and discover what those passions are, and you lean into those passions, and then do some of the work on the side where you're preparing yourself with your skills, it will work out. I'm not saying it's magic. You do have to do some work, but always lean into your passion and always lean into the problem. What is the problem you're put on the earth to solve? And that's the entrepreneurship conversation. What is the problem or problems that you are put on this earth to solve? And if you do that, the other stuff will follow. The other stuff will take care of itself. The money will follow. The clients will follow. But you've always got to be solving a problem. And what is solving a problem? Back to the beginning of our conversation. Solving a problem is service. Right? What service are you doing in the world that makes someone's life better, that makes a community's life better? And sometimes it's going to show up in the domain of your paid work. Sometimes it's going to show up in the domain of your volunteer work. And they're equally as valuable, because they both make a difference. They both have a ripple effect. So I don't know if I answered your question, but what my journey is teaching me is that it's what I'm learning is that the more I focus on problem, passion, purpose, the more centered I am around everything else.
And this is beautiful because we're talking about recognizing a calling,
That's right.
moving forward with it, still but realizing that it is a struggle, but you can move to the next chapter, in the next chapter, and you will find the sense of life once you become a human of service to others. And the human of service does not mean that you only have to do things for free. You can also be of service when you are serving your clients, your customers. Have that heart of service to help others, but still be giving on the side in a philanthropic kind of way.
Absolutely. I feel like everyone's life is different. Everyone's life is like a fingerprint. It's unique. And so everybody is going to find their own unique mix of this stuff. So I would never say that it has to look like this, 40% that, 30% that, because everybody's life is different. Everybody's circumstances is different. And even within one life, your circumstances change in different seasons of your life, right? So your 20s and your 30s are about like skill building and maximizing your earning potential and building your personal brand and doing all of those things. And then you get a little older, your life priorities shift. But I do think that at the end of the day, humans are called to a purpose, a set of purposes. I think purpose number one, I get this from Richard Nelson Bowles, who's the author of What Color Is Your Parachute? Probably the career counseling Bible, right? It's been around for decades, and he writes. He says our first purpose is to love God, however you experience God, right? To love God, to love the divine, and to express that. Then purpose number two, love your neighbor. How is love being shown at the level of human beings, of humanity, right? And he does it in a very practical way, right? He says you're driving in traffic and somebody cuts you off, right? Now you have two options, right? You can either flip that person the bird and curse them out, or you can make the choice to say, they're a human being like I am, and guess what? I've cut people off too when I'm in traffic, right? Like I've done that myself. So am I treating my neighbor as I would myself? And then if you can sort of if you can sort of do that, then after that comes vocation. Then after that comes purpose and calling and job and career and work. And so I love that template because it takes the pressure off me, right? It says if I can just focus on being a good human being first, then I can have some energy, mental and emotional and spiritual energy to work on the other stuff. Now, once I'm there, I have some homework to do, and I have some decisions to make, and I have some research to do, and I have some experimentation to try. And I need to think differently between my job. Sometimes they're the same, and sometimes they're different. My job is that thing I get paid for, that thing I exchange time for money. But my work is the thing that I'm divinely called to do. When I can collapse those two, I'm in the catbird seat, right? I'm in a place where like I'm really living at a very high vibrational level. But you don't have to do that. But when you know, kind of, you have a good mix of those things, it's a nice place to be.
I absolutely love this. What a beautiful conversation. This is amazing. So, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I'm Latina and I know the meaning of getting together and dancing.
Yes.
And you have come to a conclusion that dancing salsa gathers together community.
Yes.
And tell us about that. How are you doing?
Okay, so I was working in public relations, and I was introduced to salsa, by a wonderful young lady who, she was we at the time, and she was already in the salsa world, and so mostly for her, I started following her to salsa dance clubs and salsa dance classes. But what I found over time was salsa was doing two things for me. It was doing more than two things, but it was filling two very deep-seated needs for me that I can say now, but at the time I couldn't articulate it. Number one is it was cultural affirmation. My father was a salsa musician. Salsa was always on in the background of our Puerto Rican home. But when it's your father's and your mother's music, it's not cool, right? Like, know your parents' music, right? Because your parents are not cool, and so the music they listen to is not cool. So, but as a young man, experiencing salsa this way, I started to listen to it with different ears. And oh, wait a minute, there's really important culture here, and it gave me new access to like my heritage and my culture into a diasporic culture, right? Because salsa is primarily sort of associated with like Puerto Rico and Cuba, as it should be, but it's Colombian and it's Mexican and it's Venezuelan, right? It has become the world's music. So it was giving me access to Latinidad that I didn't know existed.
Yes.
But then as a young man coming into his manhood and now dancing with people and understanding how you ask someone to dance and all of the emotions that come with holding somebody and dancing with somebody, all the nervousness you feel and all the feelings you feel, I was growing in confidence in a different way. I was confident professionally, but I wasn't necessarily confident like as a human. And it was giving me this confidence. And like I said earlier, my nature is if I learn something, I've got to get it out. I'm an educator at the core of who I am. And so I got the opportunity to start teaching just for fun, like just as a volunteer. And then I got paid for it. And I was like, oh, they paid me to do this? Okay. And then I became affiliated with an amazing studio in New York called Dance Manhattan. And I was there forever. And then I started teaching children with dancing classrooms and teaching them not just salsa, but teaching them ballroom dancing and merengue and tango and swing and foxtrot. And I saw the impact that I was having on children's lives. And then I was featured in Mad Hot Ballroom, which everybody has to go see for homework. And what I started to see, Maritza, is that what dance was doing for me, I was seeing how it was impacting other people too, both children and adults, bringing people together It was bringing people together across boundaries. Kids were learning new social and emotional skills as a result of learning how to dance together. Um, People from all walks of life were walking into the dance studio: lawyers, doctors, secretaries, everybody. They put their professional identity away, and when they were in the dance studio, they were just human beings learning how to dance together. And I said, there's power in that. And so over the last 10 years, I've been I'm still interested in dance as art, because dance is still art, and that's important. What I've become more fascinated with is like social dance. And when I say social dance, I specifically mean dancing, vernacular dancing, the dances of our community: salsa, merengue, cumbia, bachata, all of those things. And how they actually bring communities together, and how they build teams, and how they build collaboration. Because I think there's power in our culture to do that in ways that like other art forms don't do. So that's what I'm geeking out over right now.
And that is beautiful, because I never, although we do dance together with friends and family, and to actually become social with others. Especially right now, and we are recording in December, so we're about to have Christmas. During Christmas, Latinos, we are dancing all the time.
Right. That's for sure. That's right. That's right.
So it brings community together. And one of the things that I never saw this when it is beautiful, because it's a gathering social activity, and people are happy, and people are exercising, and they are experiencing a diverse culture that is not only unique for one country in Latin America, but is now everywhere.
That's right.
Because salsa has the roots from Africa, the sounds in Africa. So it has come to this beautiful cultural, I will say, icon, but everyone wants to learn it. I have friends that dance better than me. One of my coworkers, she was from Ohio, and she was a ballroom dance and salsa dancer. And I couldn't believe it when I saw her dancing. I'm like, oh my goodness. She's doing the pirouetas and everything. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, because the and hip hop does this also, right? Hip hop began in the South Bronx with Black and Puerto Rican youth, and now what I tell people, like hip hop sells diapers and cars on TV. Like it's in Japan, it's in Germany, it's everywhere, right? So as Latinos and Latinas and Latinx have this, we have not just one, we have these cultural assets, these cultural gifts that we get to give to the world: our music, our dance, our food, our culture, all of these things, right? And yes, sometimes it gets culturally appropriated, and sometimes it gets misused or stereotyped and whatever, and that's a separate conversation. But it's a gift to the world. But it's our birthright, right? It's our birthright. And so yeah, you might have this white friend from Ohio who's like an amazing salsa dancer, and you might say, "Where'd you learn that?" Like, I grew up in a Colombian household, and I don't have the whatever. That's the thing that I hear all the time, and it kind of drives me crazy. I have Latinos come into my class and they say, "I'm Colombian or I'm Peruvian, I should know how to do this." I'm like, no, you shouldn't. Not necessarily, right? Like, just because you have, a culture in your blood and in your background doesn't mean that somehow dance gets downloaded into your brain. You still have to learn how to do it. You still have to practice, just like anything else. But maybe what you have is greater access to the cultural context of it, right? You have greater access to the language. The last thing I'm going to say about this is, what is, in my opinion, really unique. I'm not going to say, well, I mean, other cultures have their versions of it too, so it's not unique to just Latin. But what I really love about Latin dancing, that's different from a lot of other art forms, is that it's also intergenerational. So the 7-year-old kid can also dance a merengue with his abuela,
Yes. Yes.
right?
And that's basically how we learn. We
That's how
learn with
you learn.
adult, with
That's
our,
how you learn. But I
yeah.
can tell you, you're not going to go to you're not going to go to like a hip hop club and see grandma and grandkid dancing together, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But like, that's not the way that culture is shared. But you can go to a salsa club or whatever, 3 generations of a family
Yes.
on
Yes.
the dance floor together.
On the dance floor
That's
together.
very common. So I think there's a beautiful gift in that. There's a beautiful power in that, and I think that that's one of many gifts that our diasporic nations kind of give to the world.
And this is amazing because it's part of diversity is looking for other cultures and what is in that other culture that might interest me and I can learn and go into other cultures. Like we went to a Greek festival a couple of years ago, and the dancing is incredible, and they actually dance all together in the circle and they go around, and there is one part where men dan do one thing and women do other thing, and they're in different circles and then come together, and it's amazing, amazing. So exploring new cultures is more about getting to know each other and coming to the realization that at the end we're all humans
Like,
and we all have something different to bring to the table.
that's right.
And diversity is that. And when you realize this, the creativity in a group and a team, let's say in a corporation, increases, because if everybody feels like they belong and they are able to talk about their things openly, knowing that they're not going to be judged but welcome, and find the curiosity on their coworkers, that brings a wider spectrum to the workplace. And it's not going to be discipline. It doesn't mean that they're going to get out of context. It just means they're bringing themselves to the table as who they are, and they are next step is they're working happy. The next day they come to the workplace with a big smile because they want to be there.
Agreed. That's the work that I'm trying to do now, is to bring it into companies, corporations, schools, organizations, anywhere where there's people, right? and where there are people who are trying to increase their level of connection, collaboration. Um, is this work going to solve all of your human resources problems? Absolutely not. But that's not the promise. The promise is that when you hold someone in a dance frame, my mentor, one of my mentors, Pierre Dulaine, said this. When you hold somebody in a dance frame, you can't other that person, right? When I'm holding somebody for 2 or 3 minutes, I can't other that person for very long, right? Now, what if you have to dance with, what if you're Steve from marketing and you've got to dance with Paula from accounting, and you're like, ugh, every time I see Paula from accounting, I walk down the other side of the right? Or like every time I have to sit in a meeting with Paula from accounting, like I just lose it, right? Now imagine if I put you in a dance circle with Paula from accounting. And now all of a sudden you have to dance a merengue or a tango with Paula from accounting, Steve. Well, guess what? The two of you are going to freak out. The two of you are going to be nervous. The two of you are going to have anxiety. The two of you are going to wish you were anywhere else but there. But guess what? If you can hang in there for 2 minutes, right, you're going to recognize something about each other. You're going to recognize your common humanity, your common awkwardness, your common nervousness, the fact that you both have sweaty palms, the fact that you both like don't know what you're doing, that you're both learning something new together. And then you move on from that experience and you're like, well, I'm still not crazy about Paula. She's not so bad.
Yeah.
Or Steve still gets on my nerves, but he's all right. And what does that mean for the next day or the day after that, like you said, right? And if we can do that enough, then maybe we create an opening for different kinds of conversations to happen.
Yes.
So that's the dream.
And that is beautiful because you can do this with dancing, and there are other people that do it in different ways. But I think that dancing is wonderful because what you're saying is true. And I think I went to like 2 years ago, no, 4 years ago already, because it was before the pandemic. We went to take bachata lessons with my husband. And to him, my husband is American from Michigan, and to him it was super awkward. To me, it was very exciting because I always wanted to learn how to dance bachata. And at the end, it is incredible how like you take a six classes, 6 lessons is like 6 weeks, and at the end the group comes together so nicely, and that when somebody that never got it before they get it, everybody celebrates that person.
That's right.
Or if the couple, oh, we got it, and they never have known each other. We don't even know our names, or probably the 6th lesson we know our names, but we don't have any, in this case, our numbers. um Everybody's celebrating each other's accomplishments.
That's right. That's right.
It's
And
beautiful.
it's a beautiful thing, and it's in your body. It's in your nervous system. You don't forget that feeling. It doesn't go away. You always come back to that. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's
Yeah.
very much it's physical, but it's more than physical too. It's not like working out at a gym either. It is the meeting of mind, body, spirit, soul, joy, all those things kind of mixed up, right? Because you're listening to music, you're moving to music, you're negotiating space with another human being. All of these senses are being called into play, and there's something very, very unique about that.
And this is beautiful.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our conversation, and I want to keep on talking about how beautiful this is. But I want to give you the opportunity to talk about your nonprofit, and also how can people contact you.
I'm actually not. I'm no longer leading a nonprofit at this point, although I serve on nonprofit boards. Right now, I am doing independent work around this thing that we just talked about, working with schools, organizations, companies in sort of two domains, right? One which is using social dance for team building, collaboration, connection, and leadership, right? I also have a leadership component to this. So if there's somebody listening to this who's interested in sort of that kind of community and team building, there's some programming we can put together for you. And then on the other side, idea of giving and generosity. If you have a board that is struggling with fundraising or with storytelling, how do you tell the story of your nonprofit or of your organization? We've got some tools to help you do that. And so folks can just reach me at my website, rodneyericlopez.com. You'll find a prompt to find me. I'm sure maybe in the speaker notes that you put out, Maritza, I also have a QR code that's very easy to scan where you could just get all of my contact information and my social media, all of those things. But pretty much you can find me by name, Rodney Eric Lopez, at my website, Instagram, LinkedIn, Rodney Eric López is the handle, and I'm pretty accessible in all of those places.
Excellent. Is there any last thought that you would like to leave the audience with?
I think the last thing I'll say is really just a reiteration of what we talked about earlier, which is, and it's something, and the reason why I'm leaving with this is because it's something I'm meditating on right now, deeply in my own life and work, which is, if you can identify the thing that you're about, if you can identify the thing that that you are being uniquely called to do. Frederick Buhner writes, your passion is where your greatest desire and the world's greatest need meet. And so if you can find that intersection, then you will be in a really beautiful place in terms of work, in terms of career. And I think that that's what all of life is finding that place over and over and over again. So stay focused on passion, purpose, and the profit will follow.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Rodney, for this wonderful review. I would love to have you back and talk about other things that we left off the plate today.
Yes,
But to you, my audience, remember you came to this earth to love, because the greater force or God loved you to be loved and loved one another. Thank you. Till next time.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.